Thank you.
Very good.
Thank you. Today we have Pat Murphy with us. For those of you who spent their youth in Bay St. Louis, you know Pat from his band days. Pat, not band days. Pat, very well-known musician with his band over the years that played in numerous clubs and events here in town. Post his band days, Pat became a bit of a historian. He's always been a collector of photographs and stories about Bay St. Louis. As you know, a couple of years ago, he published a book, Growing Up Downtown, which has been very successful, enjoyed by many, many people. So Pat's going to speak to us today about some of the aspects of Bay St. Louis and Hancock County, Waveland. And then we're going to have a bit of a Q&A. If you have any experiences you want to share, or you have any particular questions about what went on in Bay St. Louis at that time, you're welcome to ask those questions or share your comments with us. So, Pat, I'm going to turn it over to you, buddy.
Thanks, Chris. Y'all hear me all right? I really appreciate y'all having me here. I love to speak about Bay St. Louis. I'm a born and bred Bay Rat. And you know, my interest in Bay St. Louis, particularly with the downtown area, was because my grandfather was a businessman in downtown Bay St. Louis for 50 years. And you know, so many of my childhood memories go back to growing up downtown, growing up and hanging out at his store and riding the streets and with other kids in the downtown area. So downtown has always been, you know, a interesting place for me. You know, I started collecting photographs. Back in the early 80s, I did a thing called the Beachfront Festival because I was in business in downtown Bay St. Louis. And I started collecting photographs and to do a vintage photo collection or display. And it just kind of blossomed from there. But, you know, what I was going to talk about today is I have always, I'm going to start with a couple of photos. I've always really been interested in the beachfront, or what it used to be like, particularly before 1969's Hurricane Camille, but really even back to before 1947. And just recently, Brian brought me a Ziploc bag of old photographs and some postcards and that kind of thing. And in going through them, I found some old postcards of the beachfront. And this one that I've got up here shows the beachfront of Bay St. Louis, and more than likely it was taken from the railroad bridge. But what I find really, really interesting about it, and it had to be at the latest in the early 1920s, because if you look about to the left side of the picture, you can see the Seacoast Echo building, or the building that 200 North Beach is in now. But what you don't see is the A&G Theater, and that was built around 26, I think it was. But anyway, I mean, you can see the old DeMontleson home, and just, you know, you can see the Tulane Hotel further down, and then you can see the buildings out on stilts out, you know, off the seawall. So
Let's see if we can do this. Isn't this a DeMontleson house?
that's the old DeMontleson home that became Baytown Inn, and then that's the Seacoast Echo building there, and then, like I said, down next to it you'll see
Down here?
well, there's no theater. To your right, where you were going, is a Tulane Hotel. That's that right there. And then further down is the rock. Next to that was I knew it was the Roxette House, But Ellen Kane lived in that house for a long time, and Sanders lives there now, I think. And then the next house is Dot Phillips's house, which is a bed and breakfast place, and you can see the steeple over the trees of the old Episcopal church that used to be at the corner
I
of,
was wondering about that.
yeah, of the corner of Carroll Avenue and the beach.
Okay.
And I'm not absolutely sure, but that long looking pier that runs out there, that possibly could be the entrance to the auto ferry. It doesn't look substantial enough for that, but in the next photo I'm going to show that to you, and I believe that, and that was located right at the head of DeMontleson Street. That was where the entrance to the ferry was. I mean, you drove out on a pier way out in the water and you got on the ferry. So, that,
Do you think it was part of the hotel?
it could be, but
Because the Montezon Street would be where
well, it's not but the two-lane hotel wasn't far from DeMontleson Street. It's kind of, DeMontleson would have been about in the middle. But anyway,
Oh, okay.
we'll just, we'll move on to the next photo, and I'll show you a picture of the ferry, and it's kind of shot from another angle. See, that is the picture of the ferry, and that's possible that it could have been built at, and that pier was to your right in there. But in this photo, you can see to the left of the Seacoast Echo building, the A&G Theater. Okay, well, you can. I just wanted to show those two photos. We can go ahead and move on. What I really wanted to talk about today was the fact this is one of my favorite photos of old. This is how I remember downtown Bay St. Louis. This was taken probably in about 1946, definitely before the 1947 hurricane. At the time, my grandfather's store was right where the Frigidaire sign is underneath the Seacoast Echo. That was my grandfather's store. But that's how I remember downtown Bay St. Louis. There was lots and lots of businesses and bars and restaurants and shops and all those kind of things. But it was completely self-sustaining.
Did it
All the
look
trees
like
along
that
the
all the
beach
way up to Camille?
I'm sorry, what?
Did it look like that pretty much all the way to Camille?
Yes, pretty much. I mean, there was in the 47 hurricane, there was like the building where the Jack's sign is, and then a building in between that those were destroyed in 47 hurricane. A building or two on the other side of the Regal Beer sign was destroyed in the 47 hurricane. But some of those buildings were built back. They never built, the ones down on this end were never built back. But it pretty much remained like that with the street and parking on both sides and.
the trees on the beach side.
Well, they had China ball trees.
Which
Yeah.
is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
What cross street would the photographer be close to?
DeMontleson. Yeah, because State Street runs between the A&G Theater and the Seacoast Echo building. So he would be closer to DeMontleson Street. Okay, we can change. What I wanted to show was just a lot of people don't realize it, that there used to be an abundance south of the railroad tracks, not in the downtown proper, but south of the railroad tracks. There used to be an abundance of businesses and buildings all out on the water side. And this was Bay Mercantile, which Mr. Osenak had. He was a mover and a shaker in Bay St. Louis, and had Osenak Opera House and some of that kind of stuff. And the Opera House was next to Merchants Bank, going towards Our Lady of the Gulf. But the Opera House, they had a huge fire in 1903, and it burnt all of that stuff. So Mr. Osenak built this building on the water side, kind of across from where Merchants Bank was. And that was Bay Mercantile Company. And then there was several buildings on the right of it. My grandfather went into business. He started his first store, was in one of those buildings to the right of it. Okay. That,
Oh, sorry. I don't know
that's all
why
right,
that-
that's all right. That was just a picture of later on that same Bay Mercantile building. This was when it was Olin's department store in the 1950s. It later became a dollar store, and it was destroyed in Hurricane Camille in 1969. Okay, Mr. Beverly. Now this photo to me just blows my mind, because this is taken from somewhere around Sycamore Street, but it's up on the hill after you come up from Stanislaus. And look at the number of buildings that are on the right, on the water side of that. You know, it just, there was, you know, there's probably 15 or 20 buildings between there and where Bay Mercantile was. Some of them burnt, you know, down. A lot of hurricane storms got a lot of them. But anyway, I love this photo. Okay. All right, this was a hardware store that was on the water side, Ladner's Hardware, right about where Booker Street is on the south side of St. Stanislaus, but out over the water. And the former Sheriff Sylvan Ladner, that was his daddy's store. Okay.
What year do you think that was?
Probably, I would guess 1910, 1915, in that range. I'm a good guesser. This is not the first, but it was a very early Maneri's restaurant. Maneri's restaurant for a long time was on the water side at the head of Main Street. But this was an early restaurant that Maneri's had that was destroyed in the 1915 hurricane. But that was right at Washington Street and the beach.
That's a pier.
Yeah, that's a pier. That may be Stokes Wharf. It doesn't look substantial enough, but it might have been a little bit further south. Stokes Wharf.
Would that have been during Prohibition? Because
Oh,
it's
no.
selling near here.
No, that was, I don't know what that was about. But,
That's what it says.
yeah, but it was long gone by Prohibition.
Oh.
Yeah, it was destroyed in the 1915 hurricane.
Huh.
This is Yenny's store, which now we're at Washington Street. This building was on the right, just on the right corner, the northwest corner of Beach Boulevard and Washington Street. And later it would become Cellier's, which was a sandwich shop and a bar room, and then after that it became an antique store, but it was destroyed in Katrina.
Star Theater was on the other side of the street.
Right, the theater was on the opposite side of the street. Okay. This was the building that would become the Star Theater at the corner of Washington Street in the beach. It started out as August Keller's store, but you could see in 1924 it was the Bay Waveland Yacht Club. And they, after the yacht club shut down because they had a period of inactivity, after the yacht club moved out of there, the building was leased and it became Uncle Charlie's nightclub, which in the 1920s and early 1930s, it was one of the Bay's hot spots. They had a lot of Dixieland bands and things playing there. And this was actually at the corner of Washington Street and Beach Boulevard, and would later become the Star Theater. This is actually a photo of two of the bartenders in the bar inside of Uncle Charlie's nightclub. And I know the guy to the right was a Heitzman. That's, I don't know what is it, but I remember he was a Heitzman. Okay, this is Ben Healy Motors. He was an automobile dealership, but he was a garage and car mechanic, and Frank Healy was his son, one of his sons. And, they were in business for a long time. They started business in the probably mid-1930s. Next to that, and that was, if you're looking at the where the Star Theater was, or the Bay Waveland Yacht Club, Healy Motors was to the left of that. And then next to Healy Motors was Spartano's store, which I think was a grocery store, but it was some type of business. And that's a picture of the general merchandise Spartano's store. And here again, you can look on the opposite side of the street on the beach side, and there's buildings there. You know, it looks like there's a barber shop and a few things like that. But it really was a business center in a lot of ways.
Like a chicken crossing the
Yeah. Probably a dirt road too. This is Stokes Wharf, which is really right at the head of Washington Street. And Stokes, however you want to pronounce it, this was built as a dock, or it was a place for commerce. The boats came and unloaded wares and picked up stuff, and you shipped and received shipment at Stokes Wharf. And it was very, very popular and used really before the highways ran over here. So you know, it just and even as a kid, when I was a little bitty kid, the pilings from that were still there.
When did it go, do you know?
I want to say 47, but I can't, I don't know that. This is the picture of the American Legion home, which you can see the pilings out in the water from Stokes Wharf. But in early 1950s, post 139 of the American Legion here in Bay St. Louis built their post home at the corner of Washington Street and Beach Boulevard. And it was there from about 54 to Camille took it out. But it was a lot of things. My dad called bingo for many years at the American Legion home. And there was a lot of social events and dances and Christmas things. They used to do every year they would show a Christmas movie at the Star Theater for the kids, and the kids would leave the Star Theater and go, and the American Legion had Santa Claus, and Santa Claus would give out toys to all the kids. And Santa Claus used to come into come in on a seaplane. I got a picture somewhere of Santa Claus getting out the seaplane over there closer to St. Stanislaus Pier. But you know, it was, I mean, I'm not talking about 30 or 40 kids, I'm talking about hundreds of kids, and every child, you know, no matter what color, creed, whatever, they all got a Christmas gift and got to sit on Santa Claus's lap. Mr. Leroy Luke usually played Santa Claus. Okay. And that's all the photos that I have. I'd be glad to take some questions, or if I don't know, I'm just gonna tell you.
I believe I understood that,
Speak up.
I believe the, yacht club was originally out over the water.
Correct.
And I believe it went down in the 17 storm. And that's when the yacht club sort of was wandering. It didn't know what to do until they finally settled into the Star Theater. Yeah.
Yeah, that, I think that makes a lot of sense. I know that it was out, the yacht club, the original yacht club was out at the end of West Oakers
Yes,
Wharf.
we have a picture of that
Yeah,
somewhere.
yeah, right.
One little tidbit, I think is correct. When you talk about the Opera House,
Uh-huh,
I think Cecil B. DeMille performed there.
I think he did.
And he said it was one of the finest theaters he was ever in.
Who performed there?
Cecil B. DeMille.
We had, Pat mentioned the A&G Theater, and doing some research on another project, Charlie Chaplin performed at the A&G Theater. So here you are in a little town back in the
Yeah.
20s, 3,000 people, whatever it was. And apparently he did a tour, and in the Seacoast Echo, there was an ad, Charlie Chaplin coming, whatever the date was, I forget now. So some interesting history with these notable people coming to the day.
What was the car bridge built at the foot of Albemarle Avenue?
Oh, it was dedicated in 1928.
And when did it go down? Did it burn
They-
or something?
No, well, it burned several times, but never like completely.
Okay.
They dedicated the concrete car bridge where the location of the bridge is now in 1954.
Okay.
The car bridge used to catch on fire because it was wood and it was creosote, but it was asphalt. The surface was asphalt and tar. And it's my understanding that from the car backfires and people throwing cigarettes out the window of the automobile, that it wood, the bridge on fire. But I vaguely remember as a little bitty kid the bridge catching fire. But anyway, the concrete car bridge, they rerouted the highway, because the highway used to go straight down Ullman Avenue and hit the bridge right there and go straight on across to Bayview and the pass. But it's, you know, it rerouted the highway and dedicated the new highway bridge. You know, the A&G Theater actually started across the street on the water side of Beach Boulevard as an open air theater. And then I think it was 1926 that Gaspard and Ames were the two principals in that, and they got an architect from New Orleans, a big time guy, to design the theater, and somewhere we've got some the original, but they're like the blueprints of the different,
really?
of the different choices for the front of the building and all that kind of stuff. It's pretty interesting, and it was a major league nice theater when it was built. By the time I was a young man, it kind of gotten seedy, but it was nice. Anybody else?
In what year did the influx of New Orleans visitors become very popular in the Wayland, Bay St. Louis area?
I don't know if there is a year. I mean, it was always. Always. I mean, it just, people, it's common to hear stories of people, particularly like in summertime, bringing the whole family over here, even by boat, and bringing them over here and with the household help and everything for the summer. And the daddy would commute on the train back and forth to New Orleans. Of course, it got far more popular once they built the highway, and they were able to get over here by car. But, and then you start having some fathers commuting every day back and forth. But it's always been a huge vacation community.
The big impetus was yellow fever.
Yes.
And you probably heard, well, it must be in the air, so let's leave the city air and come over here to the coast. And that caused
This is
hiccup.
like,
So,
this is like a health
What
spot.
year did they start building the beach itself?
The beach that we have here now in Hancock County, 1966.
Really?
Yeah, it was after Hurricane Betsy. It was done originally, not only for a tourism thing, but it was done to preserve the beach road. Because every hurricane, the beach road would get torn up so bad. The beach in Harrison County, I want to say, in the 20s sometimes, that they pumped that in. Well, they did the seawall first, and then they did a beach. Right?
Speaking of the seawall, before the Hoover Dam, the largest man-made concrete structure was the seawall over there. And when I was talking about the Bay Bridge burning, sometimes, I'm from New Orleans, but sometimes in the late 40s, early 50s, I think we were over here for Easter party, and I remember when we left, I looked back over here and all the smoke.
I've got some pictures of it, on fire, and y'all do too, because I'm sure they came from y'all. Anybody else?
I'm just curious. Washington Street was always a solid small business area.
Right.
When we were growing up.
Right.
Why did the city choose to zone that residential instead of keeping it? They're begging now to have spaces to put businesses, and that was a nice kernel of business.
You asking me?
I'm really asking
I don't know why the city did it, but I think probably, particularly after Katrina, that there was a lot of pressure from developers, and they had people going crazy. They were going to build 30-story hotels, and all of this kind of stuff. Just anything that they could put residential stuff on. That's what they were trying to do. And the city, I think, was just at the time was just like, oh, okay, it's something, But yeah, I think it always was a great. Your grandparents lived right there, and it was always just a great little business area, It's like the Oldsmobile dealership was there,
In hindsight, it would have been nice if they had kept it.
Oh yeah, no doubt. Do we have time to keep going, or what time do we need to quit?
Well, if there's no more questions.
I'm glad to answer if but.
Chris, hold up one of his books.
Oh, sure.
If you have not seen his book, this is it here, and it has some wonderful pictures in it. But what is even better, it has some fantastic little stories about people that grew up here in Bay St. Louis. For example, this gentleman standing right next to me, tell them about your person that rode the bicycle around.
It's my Uncle Melvin Young.
Oh,
He
wow.
rode a three-wheel bicycle all over Bay St. Louis and wore a reflective vest. It looked like something you'd wear to keep from drowning if you fell off the boat, you know. And my kids, when they were little, we saw him riding across the Bay Bridge on his bicycle with that thing on. They said, "Look, Uncle Melvin's afraid of falling in the water."
He used to wear a football helmet too.
Football helmet, that's right. He kept getting hit by cars.
Looked like Jack Nicholson in Easy Rider.
But I'm telling you, there's lots of little stories in there.
There's a whole chapter in there on the town characters.
Right, yeah.
Which, believe me, in Bay St. Louis in the old days, there were some characters that lived in this town.
Right.
And one of them sitting right there at the table talking.
But it makes a great Christmas gift. And
Yeah.
we had mentioned earlier that, we have books that are for sale here. And I just want to hold up another book besides
Yeah.
yours, because the gentleman that wrote this book, Red Deer, is right up your hand. It's right there. So you'd be surprised what is up here that you can find for Christmas gifts. But if you have some relative that moved away from here years ago, you can't find a better one than this. And with that, I think it's time to go, Chris.
I would like to say one thing too. It's also great for carrying on the memories, for your grandkids and that kind of stuff. If you can impress an interest from them for it, 'cause it definitely tells the story of Bay St. Louis in the 40s, 50s, and on.
Why don't you think Claremont Harbor never came back? I used to spend some summers in
Government.
What?
Government, FEMA elevation, all of that kind of stuff. It just, it could, because of that, it could never be what it was then. I mean, you could have, and you still are having a lot of fairly good number of houses being built now, raised, but it'd never be like it used to be.
Well, you had a big generational change too, because it was owned by your grandparents.
Right.
And so you'd come visit, maybe your kids would come visit. Well, when it went down, the grandparents were gone, the 2 or 3 kids didn't want to spend the money to build another house like that, so they sell the property, anybody comes in. So it just flipped the residential area around in Waverly and some parts of Bay St. Louis had the same economic effect.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Cedar Point, same thing. Cedar Point went for long time where there was nothing going on. And that's where I grew up down there. And now it's starting to come back, but everything's raised.
So we just did whatever they thought we
Very
wanted to do.
Thank you all. For the Christmas party in December, we won't have a lunch in December, we'll have the Christmas party, and then we'll pick up again in January with our usual Thursday luncheons, Thursday. So thank you all for coming, it's very much appreciated.
I also will be glad to sign any books if anybody wants to buy a copy.